Israel broke decades of carefully calibrated brinkmanship and launched the largest single-day air campaign in its history. More than 200 fighter jets streaked across the region, striking Iran's Natanz enrichment plant, Fordo's underground cascades, several ballistic missile factories, the Revolutionary Guard headquarters in Tehran, and safe houses used by senior Iranian commanders and nuclear scientists. Among those confirmed dead are IRGC Chief Hossein Salami, Armed Forces Chief of Staff Mohammad Bagheri, and at least 6 high-level physicists tied to Iran's advanced centrifuge project. As dawn broke over both countries, air raid sirens sounded in Tel Aviv. Tehran's Imam Khomeini airport suspended all flights, and the global oil price spiked 8% on Asian markets. The Middle East had crossed a red line many analysts believed neither side would risk breaching.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival.
Jerusalem's public justification centers on an imminent point of no return. Israeli officials claim new intelligence shows Iran can now enrich enough uranium for a single bomb within weeks following the International Atomic Energy Agency's unprecedented censure of Tehran for non-compliance on June 10th. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told Israelis that waiting any longer would leave the Jewish state defenseless against an existential threat. He also linked the strike to a wider pattern of Iranian escalation. Drone swarms launched at Israel in April and October 2024, Hezbollah rocket salvos from Lebanon, and the continued arming of Palestinian Islamic Jihad. In cabinet leaks, aides say Netanyahu framed the decision as the 1981 Osirak moment, only bigger, evoking the Israeli raid that destroyed Saddam Hussein's reactor and, in his view, prevented a nuclear-armed Iraq. The campaign, dubbed Operation Rising Lion, appears to pursue 3 military goals. First, to physically degrade Iran's capacity to produce a bomb by cratering enrichment halls, sabotaging power feeds, and collapsing tunnel entrances. Second, to decapitate the Revolutionary Guard's missile and drone command structure, thereby shrinking Iran's ability to retaliate quickly. Third, to signal to regional adversaries that Israel retains escalation dominance even without overt U.S. participation. Israeli spokespeople stressed the strikes are phase 1 of several, hinting that follow-on waves could hit air defense radars, oil export terminals, or Iranian bases in Syria and Iraq. The IDF simultaneously called up tens of thousands of reservists, closed national airspace, and blanketed its skies with Arrow 3 and David Sling interceptors, visible proof that planners expect incoming missiles and drones once Iran regroups. Timing also aligns with Netanyahu's precarious political standing. Facing corruption trials and coalition strains, the Prime Minister has repeatedly framed Iranian nuclear progress as a personal and historic test. Israeli commentators note that previous war cabinet meetings produced contingency plans but stopped short of execution because Washington withheld bunker-buster munitions and diplomatic cover. Yet in 2025, the calculus shifted. Donald Trump's White House warned it would not join the attack, but simultaneously loosened restrictions on precision-guided kits, giving Netanyahu a narrow, go-it-alone window. Critics inside Israel argue the strike risks a wider conflict that could swamp the economy and spark pro-Palestinian unrest. Supporters counter that inaction would invite a nuclear-armed adversary sworn to Israel's destruction. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei labeled the raid a crime that will be met with severe punishment, while state television broadcast chants of death to Israel, death to America. Within hours, Iran launched more than 100 Shahed-type drones towards southern Israel. Most were intercepted over Jordan and the Negev desert. But the salvos serve notice that Tehran will play for time while it calibrates a larger response. Analysts expect asymmetric tactics, rocket fire by Hezbollah, maritime harassment in the Strait of Hormuz, and cyber strikes against Israeli infrastructure. Yet Iran now grapples with a decimated top military tier and the embarrassment of Israeli jets evading its vaunted air defenses. The government must weigh coercive credibility against the risk that further escalation could trigger a second Israeli wave or even draw reluctant U.S. forces into the fray. President Trump quickly distanced the United States. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said, "Tonight, Israel took unilateral action. We are not involved in strikes against Iran." He confirmed CENTCOM raised its alert level and began relocating families from bases in Kuwait, Bahrain, and Iraq. Privately, U.S. diplomats had warned allies the attack was imminent, but refused Israeli requests for tanker support. The strike upends fragile back-channel talks due to resume and omen on the 15th of June. For Washington, the immediate priorities are protecting 65,000 troops across the Gulf for calming oil markets and preventing Tehran from blaming American complicity. Trump's political advisors also fear that spiraling conflict could derail his re-election narrative of avoiding new Middle East wars. Strategically, Israel is betting that a dramatic rollback of Iran's nuclear and missile programs will blunt the so-called axis of resistance for years. Analysts argue Tehran has never looked weaker, with Hezbollah stretched thin after the 2024 Gaza conflict and Syria's previous president Assad dependent on Russian mercenaries. Gulf Arab states, particularly Saudi Arabia and the UAE, have condemned Israel, showing their concerns about a regional war. Jordan closed its airspace, underscoring how quickly a bilateral clash can spill across borders. Turkey and Qatar have also condemned the raids, but neither is likely to risk direct confrontation with Israel. Beyond missiles and diplomacy, the next front may be economic. Even a temporary shutdown of Iran's Karg Island export terminal, or Israeli disruption of Hormuz shipping lanes, could send Brent crude above $120, jeopardizing the fragile post-pandemic recovery in Asia and Europe. Israel is counting on Iran's need for oil revenue and Beijing's dependence on those barrels to restrain Tehran's hand. Yet if hardliners around Khamenei calculate that foreign buyers will continue to launder purchases through off-the-books channels, they may feel freer to escalate. Conversely, sustained energy volatility could bring global pressure on both protagonists to accept mediation, perhaps via Oman. Israel has achieved tactical surprise, but the strategic endgame remains uncertain. If follow-up strikes over the next 48 hours succeed in sealing tunnel shafts and destroying centrifuge stockpiles, Iran's nuclear timetable could be set back several years, though outright elimination is unlikely. Tehran's response will reveal whether the region slides into a cycle of tit-for-tat or edges toward an uneasy deterrence akin to India-Pakistan after the 2019 Balakot raid. For now, both populations face air raid alerts. Global markets brace for further shocks, and diplomats scramble to prevent a localized strike from igniting a region-wide war that drags in the United States, Russia, and even China. Israel struck because it judged the nuclear threat immediate believed time, and Washington's political calendar offered a fleeting window and calculated that decisive action, even at the risk of escalation, was preferable to living under the shadow of a possible Iranian bomb. Whether that gamble stabilizes the Middle East or plunges it into deeper conflict will be decided not in Tel Aviv or Tehran, but in the uncertain days that follow.